time for the final word in sports all across the state. You're listening to Sports Talk with your hosts, Phil Kornbluth, Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes. You've been waiting all day, so join the show now by calling 800-956-7266.
It is, whatever this year is, year 9 for me, it never is easy to play these guys. It is always an incredible undertaking.
I told our guys, you'll be defined by how you end the season. It starts with Vanderbilt. That's how this team will be defined. And you reflect when the year's over, not while you're in the middle of the season.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome into Sports Talk, Talking Tuesday, coming at you right here from South Carolina Radio Network Sports Talk, downtown Columbia. Phil Kornbluth back from the trip to the upstate. Will Pelagic, a.k.a. Willie P., a.k.a. P. Lodge.
Terrible.
A.k.a.
Terrible.
Willie P. here. I'm just making these up as I go.
You're just bad. The
Professor Tom Hayes here as well. So I went up to Clemson. You went over to USC. One thing I noticed today, going up I-26 over to 185 to 385.
All the potholes?
Over to 76 up to Clemson.
How much is that toll, by the way?
No, $1.75.
Okay.
Twice, times 2.
None of the trees have turned colors yet.
No.
They're all still green. What's up with that?
It just had a tornado go through.
They did. They did. So I'm missing the beautiful colors of fall here in South Carolina.
Global warming.
Dabo Sweeney turned a little red today when talking about the boxing outbreak in his locker room, last week or so. But that's been settled. There'll be no more of that at Tiger Town.
And again, it's not about the boxing; it's about the snitching.
Yeah,
I told you.
Yeah, that too. And the Tigers are getting ready for Georgia Tech, and he has great respect for Paul Johnson and that Georgia Tech offense and what they can do. Kelly Bryant seems to be pretty healthy. He's going to be the starting quarterback, no question about it. They're not going to protect him. They're going to have him implement all the plays per usual. So apparently the ankle and the head are all good after getting banged up the other time out against Syracuse. Marcus Edmond back at practice. That's good news.
Very good.
For their secondary. He is not yet in green. I'm sorry. He's still in a green jersey. I'm sorry. He's not practicing full time. I'm trying to get my jersey colors right. I guess he's still in yellow, not in a full practice jersey yet.
Non-contact jersey.
Yeah. So, but he is back at practice. And outside of that, one other note is Garrett Williams. They are going to redshirt him, barring anything else happening at tight end, anybody else getting hurt. He had the ACL injury in the spring game. Did a great job of rehabbing and getting healthy again, but they want to hold him out the rest of the year if they can and redshirt him. So that's the big news coming out of Clemson today as the Tigers get ready for Georgia Tech at home at 8 o'clock on Saturday night. They're 14.5-point favorites. They've won 2 in a row over the Yellow Jackets last year, holding them to 124 total yards and 94 rushing yards in Atlanta. But this is typically a very close series. Their games are won by less than a touchdown one way or the other usually. But I don't know about this time around. I'm thinking that a healthy Bryant, Clemson having its mat on, a couple of weeks of preparing for this, I got to think maybe the Tigers are going to cover that 14.5.
I think the other way around, and I'm looking at the defense because I think if anything, Brent Venables has the elixir for that option. At least since he's been at Clemson, they have had no problem stopping that option.
But the guy throwing the football this year is a lot more of a threat than they usually have at that position.
That's true.
But they've only thrown 53 passes.
But you saw him against
6 games.
But you saw him against Tennessee. And they're going to have to throw to have success against
Clemson.
Clemson.
I mean, if they suck you up and they're able to sneak a receiver behind you, but they don't throw the ball. Instead of being 80-20, run to pass, as Brent Venables was telling us, they're more like 90-10 now. It's that heavy on the run side with Georgia Tech, but you still have to be cognizant, with your eyes and be awake and be aware that if you do creep up too much and if you try to be a hero and do more than what you're supposed to do, that's when they beat you deep.
Football speak, read your keys. Is what Tanner Muse said earlier.
And you got to keep them in 3rd and 5 because if they're out there on the other side of the 50, 4th and 2, 4th and 3, Georgia Tech may just go for it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. All right, what about Gamecock land?
The big news is that the 3 injured offensive linemen expected back this week, Zach Bailey, Corey Helms, Malik Young, all practiced Monday, all expected to play. We got a bit of a mixed message from players versus coaches. Will Muschamp says he has not necessarily made any decisions yet on how the playing time will be distributed, but we did talk to Sedarius Hutcherson, the guy who basically was the implemented left guard with the absence of Helms and all the little shuffling that they had going around the offensive line. It seems that he's moved back to his second team duties with all the shuffling that has happened over the course of the week, and with everything going back in and all those players re-implemented into that offensive line. But they'll say basically over the course of this week, they will implement a practice and rep schedule based on how things go this week. Although Hutcherson also has been repping at left tackle as well and right tackle, so he could get some action there as well. And a lot of it was basically based on kind of the cross training that we've seen Eric Wolford do over the course of this season, and how much depth they've created by the fact that they had these guys go out. They had some guys step up in their place, like Hutcherson and Blake Camper and guys of that nature, and actually performed very well over the last 2 weeks, at least in SEC play. So that's a big positive for South Carolina. Mon Denson's going to take over the workload from Rico Dowdle, and they'll continue to go with a bit of a three-headed monster at running back between Denson, A.J. Turner, and Tyson Williams. And other than that, a lot of the same issues for the Gamecocks are kind of the same that we've looked at all season. Third down efficiency on offense and defense, and also efficiency in the red zone. They think that they've basically rid themselves of the problems they've had as far as field goal efficiency with Parker White, but we don't necessarily know that for a fact until we see him kick again in the game. And they also need to be able to figure out how to turn more of those 3s into 7s, or even more of those 0s into 3s and 7s, because so much of what has plagued the Gamecocks in their 2 losses is inefficiency in the red zone and inefficiency on third down. Basically, they left about 17 or 18 points on the scoreboard or off the scoreboard, and that's basically their margin of defeat this year in the 2 losses to both Kentucky and earlier this year to Texas A&M. So in that vein, the Gamecocks feel that they have the formula at least to get themselves in the win column in each of the next 3 weeks, but it all depends on whether or not they can execute.
I think the only other question to ask is, because I think it froze Tennessee on that drive in which they got the touchdown, is the fact that they actually put in some planned runs for Bentley in that football game. And is that going to continue?
It's interesting looking at Bentley because he's not a running threat necessarily, but the big threat and the big ability to have this run-pass option have success is you need to at least create the illusion of a running threat with Bentley. And so that was a very big part of their victory against Tennessee, as you mentioned, Pro. And I'm very curious to see how much of that continues. I know they don't want to see him run, they don't want to see him run exclusively like what Clemson does with Kelly Bryant, but they do want to at least have that as an option, as something that they can use moving forward.
One more note out of Clemson related to the kicking game. Right now, as practice continues this week, it's still Alex Spence as the kicker, and the what's his name, DaCosta?
Yes, the former Bishop England.
Right. Who joined the team as a walk-on. He's in there competing. There's another cat in there competing as well, but it's still Spence. But they won't know. I mean, Dabo said it. They won't decide until game time. He'll watch these guys all the way up through warm-ups on Saturday night before deciding who will kick in a field goal or extra point situation. So
remember,
still a little bit dicey there.
Remember when Danny used to go over to Ibrahim on the soccer team and find an Obed Ariri or somebody?
Oh, yeah. Donald Igwe-Buike.
Yes.
He had a nice run of soccer kickers for them who were very successful, but no such luck. I mean, he believes that Spence can do the job. He's got all the skills and the talents. I think it's between his ears right now, just the confidence.
Isn't it always with kickers,
and the focus, and maybe some fundamental things. When he approaches the kick, he's not doing some fundamental things right, and that's why he was pulling the ball the other night. Okay, Talking Tuesday, coaches and more coming up.
Sports Talk is the sports talk show of Main Street, South Carolina. From the coast to the mountains, we cover it all.
All right, welcome back in, everybody. Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. On a Talking Tuesday, if you'd like to join in, we'll squeeze in some calls amongst the coaches. 800-956-7266. Our email talkback@sportstalksc.com and on Twitter @SportsTalkSC. That's how you can reach us each and every night here on Sports Talk. Good to have you with us as we come to you from downtown Columbia. Phil Kornblut, Will Pelagic, Professor Tom Hayes, Brian Leonard, once again, behind the bulletproof glass tonight. We're brought to you by South Carolina soybean farmers and their checkoff. Learn more at scsoybeans.org. Pork powered by soy. Let's get to Dabo Swinney first tonight. And before we hear what Dabo has to say about Georgia Tech, we bring this to you, to many of you out there, but primarily for some of the announcers on ESPN and other major networks who do not know how to pronounce Dabo's name. They continue to call him Dabo. You
Or
hear that?
Dabo.
Or Dabo, yeah. Dabo or Dabo, whatever the case may be.
Not right. Not correct.
I asked Dabo, in fact, my question was, Dabo, I am sick and stinking tired of these people mispronouncing your name and misspelling your name. Please, for all of us, would you spell it for us?
Dabo. There's no two B's in there. It's not two A's. It's not an O, Dabo. It's an A as an apple, Dabo, D-A-B-O.
There you go. So ESPN, the self-proclaimed worldwide leader of mispronunciation. Please, let's get it right. Now, that really was today was breast cancer awareness day.
Easy.
Going to Bojangles too much.
Easy.
Today was breast cancer awareness. I'm sorry. And Dabo
Breast Cancer Awareness Month celebration with Dabo Swinney, and they are doing an effort in order to try and promote that and donations toward that with Dabo and his wife texting the word Dabo to 41444.
Yeah, you had that memorized, didn't you?
Yes. Well, it was the same number that they use in the Missouri-Kansas relief game, too. So I think that's a charity type line.
And he was trying to, for people who did not know how to spell his name, he was spelling it for them as part of that fundraising effort for Breast Cancer Awareness Month. That's what I was trying to get at. And he was wearing a pink shirt today and all that kind of stuff.
I think we need to throw to what he had to say about Georgia Tech to rescue you from your giggles.
Is Dabo, a little bit of a preview breakdown by him on Georgia Tech.
Just excited to get back at it, especially here at home. Got another big challenge this week with Georgia Tech. This is a really good football team. Truly 2 plays away from being 6-0. You watch the Tennessee tape. I have no idea how they lost. It's amazing they lost the ball game. Unbelievable. They turnovers was the key, the costly thing. Gave them short fields, but they really dominated the game. And then the Miami game, what a ball game! And it comes down to a 4th and 10. 2 defenders go up. How they don't get the ball, I have no idea. And the ball, it's kind of rainy. Ball bounces. Guy falls down. Ball comes down on his chest. Unbelievable play. So I mean, this is a football team that's 4-2, but truly, literally, just 2 plays away from being 6-0. This is a very good team. Paul's done an awesome job of getting these guys a great plan each and every week and in position to win. So we don't have any doubt that we're going to be in for a big fight Saturday night here in the Valley. Offensively, obviously we play them every year, so we're very familiar with who they are, and they are who they are. And it is, whatever this year is, year 9 for me, it never is easy to play these guys. It is always an incredible undertaking. The amount of discipline that you have to play with, you just can't get bored doing your job. over and over and over for 60 minutes. It's just, tackling is at a premium because of their style of play and the way they force you into one-on-one coverage and open field tackles. Being able to play the cut blocks, having the discipline because, they don't throw the ball a lot. I think right now they're averaging 4 completions a game, but it's almost 18 yards a catch, So whenever they do throw it, it's a big play, and it's typically because somebody doesn't have their eyes on the wrong thing. All of a sudden they try to do somebody else's job, and here goes a guy wide open. So it's just a real challenge from a discipline standpoint, and but we're looking forward to the matchup. The quarterback's been very impressive. He's a guy that knows the system, and that's what Paul wants, a guy that can go out there and that can make the decisions that need to be made, because it's if this then that type of an offense. It's kind of what it's the old school RPOs, I guess. Now you got RPOs. That's modern day option football, where the quarterback's empowered to make a lot of decisions. And so Paul does a great job of teaching their system and equipping the quarterback with answers.
Georgia Tech with the second leading rushing attack in the country at 378 yards per game, but they only have thrown 53 passes. So, you can really you can dare put 7, 8 in the box and man up on those receivers. But again, it's all about playing fundamental key reading football. They ask the players, and this is what has made them successful recently against Georgia Tech. They've won 2 in a row and really shut them down last year. And that is, guys, just don't get out of your lane. Don't try and do more than is necessary. Just play your role on every play. But the other thing they talk about, guys, is with this offense, of course, they tend to wear you down. And as the game moves on, you tend to give up a little bit as a defensive player, and that's when they break something big on you.
It's the ultimate mental test, playing an option football team and playing a team like Georgia Tech that runs it well. And I would think that, out of all the teams that run this type of offense, Georgia Tech has the best athletes equipped to run it efficiently. And like you said, Corn, as you go throughout a football game, they kind of lull you to sleep. That's where they can beat you over the top with passes, and that's also how they can beat you with some cumulative runs. And a game like this, I think it's almost better for Clemson to be coming off a loss because they are hyper aware of their mortality right now. They are hyper aware of their margin for error being about as thin as a glass of water right now. They need to be able to be on their keys and on their P's and Q's in order to make sure that they do not slip up, because if they slip up again, there goes the playoff.
One of the things that's made Clemson successful, in the latter games with Georgia Tech is they've gotten a 2-score lead early. Georgia Tech becomes behind schedule if you get a 2-score lead on them, because now you're testing their patience. Georgia Tech, much like when we watch Wofford Corn at the FCS level, they play keep away. You're not, when you get into a game and they're running that option well, you're not going to get many chances to have the football. And with these high-powered offenses now, with the RPOs and everything, they become rhythm offenses. And if you take an offense out of their rhythm and get a lead on them, Georgia Tech will scare you to death because they're going to play keep away. So Clemson, again, that formula has to work, that you got to get a 2-score lead early in the ball game.
Well, I think Clemson is going to be just fine on Saturday night at Death Valley. Feelings were hurt at Syracuse. They were embarrassed. Had a couple of things here happen in the last couple of weeks that certainly they don't like to see happen, like the video of the boxing going on inside the locker room. And I think the primary thing there is that somebody revealed something inside their organization that they normally tend to control, and they don't like that. And then, of course, the discussions about whether or not Kelly Bryant should have been played. That's sort of an affront to Dabo Sweeney and company, even though, he insists, and I believe him when he says that's the trainer's decisions and they make no decisions about playing a player who's been hurt. If the trainer says he can play, they let him play.
Still skeptical. And we'll be skeptical until 0-0 or 0-0s are on the clock in the fourth quarter.
Talking Tuesday with you here on Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. Busy day up in the upstates with Clemson and here in the Midlands with South Carolina as both teams get ready for home games on Saturday. It's a great day for college football fans in the state. You can catch one of the other teams in the state maybe playing an early game, and you got South Carolina at 4, Clemson at 8, so no conflict there. The Gamecocks and Commodores will be wrapping up about the time the Tigers and Yellow Jackets are about ready to kick it off in the Valley.
Makes for a good TV Saturday.
Absolutely, but we don't want you to sit on your bahonkas at home. Get out and get to the games. I'm expecting sellouts at both places. It's homecoming at South Carolina. No excuse. The weather's going to be fine. You got a 5-2 team with a chance to do some really good things here. The last weekend in October and the month of November, my goodness. I mean, South Carolina has a chance if they win their games to win the East. There is a formula, of course, for that to happen. And I know it's a long shot and all that kind of stuff, but you know what? Things happen. And but South Carolina's got to take care of its own business first, starting with Vanderbilt. And Clemson's got to do the same thing. Clemson, the way things worked out for them, they were not severely hurt by their loss to Syracuse in the national picture or in the ACC race. They can still win the division by winning their games. They'll put them in the ACC championship game, and you win that against probably Miami or Virginia Tech, one of those two. And then there'll be some teams ahead of you are going to lose because they're going to be playing each other. So the doors are going to open again for Clemson to move up and to be there come December. What is that Sunday? December the 5th or so, whenever that after the day after the championship games are played.
And it really would give Clemson some juice if NC State beats Notre Dame at Notre Dame and they go into NC State's house. That'll just give them more juice. If you're South Carolina, realistically, Cohen, you look at that schedule, you're looking for 3 wins. Like if you want 8-4, look for 3 wins.
Yeah, don't say that to Will Muschamp.
Mm-hmm. No, he's got the team focused completely on a team that South Carolina. They've won 8 in a row against this Commodore ball club. They haven't won in conference yet, have the Commodores, and Muschamp knows it's a dangerous opponent coming into Williams-Brice on homecoming weekend.
All right, we got Vanderbilt here at 4 o'clock at Williams-Brice. Experienced veteran football team, 18 starters back and 12 senior starters on both sides of the ball. You start on offense, and Ralph Webb, a guy that I've got tremendous respect for, a great competitor, runs the ball extremely hard. Blyson Game's a back that complements him extremely well. Big back, 240 pounds. Kyle Shermer's playing extremely well this year, 14 touchdown passes and 2 interceptions, and throwing the ball very efficiently down the field. And the receivers are all guys that we've faced. Duncan and Sherfield and Lipscomb are all guys we faced the last couple of years. So they got really good skill outside. Derek does a great job with their defense. They're multiple in what they do. They attack you week to week differently and how they want to go after you. And Derek does a great job, and they're very good on special teams. So we've got our work cut out for us here at home. We expect a great crowd, and we're looking forward to getting back home. Injury report, Corey Helms, Zach Bailey, and Malik Young all practiced and will play Saturday. Who will start in those spots will be determined through the week, and who practices the best and gives us the best opportunity to have a good starting 5 in the offensive line. And how much those guys play will depend obviously in their health and how they're progressing through the game. Questionable would be Terry Gouger and Chad Terrell right now for the game.
Well, what'd you think of how the guy's attitude during the off week about handling success?
Well, I think we had a good off week. I think sometimes when you don't have a game Saturday, it's hard, especially for younger players, to focus and practice the right way. So I was okay with how we practiced in the off week, to be honest with you. I was very pleased Monday how we came about. We were fresh, and our guys came, and we had about an hour and 15, hour and 20-minute practice, and I thought we were very crisp on the field. And I think our guys understand the opponent we have in front of us, Vanderbilt.
Well, if you guys beat Vandy, you'd go into November, the month of November, with the SEC East title still within reach. What would that say about the program generally, and then what your team has accomplished this year?
Really, Gene, we're focused on Vanderbilt right now, and anything past that doesn't really matter. We've got to accomplish what we need to accomplish on Saturday afternoon, and that's been our focus. We haven't talked about anything other than Vanderbilt within our organization.
Where is this team now based where you thought they would be at the beginning of the season at this point, as far as, whether you're on schedule in year 2 or things of that nature? Do you think about those type of things? Where are they at in your mind?
To me, you reflect when the year is over, and we've got a lot of football to play. I told our guys, you'll be defined by how you end the season. It starts with Vanderbilt. That's how this team will be defined. And, You reflect when the year's over, not while you're in the middle of the season.
That's head coach Will Muschamp. I know it sounded like a stupid question, but I did it for that quote.
Nobody said it was a stupid. Who said it was a stupid question? You just called it a stupid question, but nobody.
Oh, I know it was.
Don't be so paranoid.
I know it was a stupid question.
It was not a stupid question.
But from a hysterical.
You can't ask a question then turn around and call your own question stupid.
No, it wasn't, because it really has some historical context. Because when South Carolina thought Spurrier had it about turned around is when they ran into that upset against Vandy. Remember 17-6, Phil? They were 6-0 at that time and lost their next 6 games. And it started with that Vandy loss.
07.
Mm-hmm.
And they lost the following year in 08, and they haven't lost to Vanderbilt since. I mean, it's interesting how they've dominated this series since they've joined the conference. So it's not like they've had any trouble with Vanderbilt, and Vanderbilt as a whole over the course of this season. We probably thought a lot more of them after their victory over Kansas State than they probably much deserve, because they've not won a game in conference. They're 3-4 now on the season. People are putting out referendums on Derek Mason, who, interestingly enough, Corn, I mean, we all kind of thought when he got there that he was going to bring more of an offensive touch, but he's bringing more of a defensive touch with the way he's necessarily, run the team. He's taken a lot of the defensive prowess as far as that goes. And
wasn't he the defensive guru at Stanford before he came?
But he played offense in the NFL. So in a way, it's kind of a reverse thing for him. And I'm wondering whether or not he needs to take more of an onus on the offensive side of the football, because that's been a place where they've had some of their struggles. Ralph Webb has not had the kind of year that he has had in years past. Kyle Shermer, more has been expected of him. He hasn't performed. So in Vanderbilt's case, they are not what they expected to be. And in converse, South Carolina is probably ahead of where they expected to be, no matter how much they would actually admit that.
If I'm Derek Mason, I'm going to check with the SEC scheduler, because when you threw Alabama and Georgia in front of me and you had them 2 road grading teams, those teams not only beat you, they can potentially demoralize you. And I saw that Vandy carried those 2 games into that game at Ole Miss, which I thought they had a chance to win.
Well, I mean, anytime you have Bama, Florida, Georgia right off the top, that's a tough ask.
There you go.
And then they basically lost the Ole Miss game, because Ole Miss is finally coming into their own, despite the fact that they started the entire year as a dumpster fire. And now they're basically having to pick up the pieces. They have South Carolina. They've got a non-con against Western Kentucky, Missouri, Tennessee. There are some winnable games for Vanderbilt down the stretch, but I just don't know how it turns around against South Carolina when you're having to go on the road against a Gamecock team that is feeling not only more confidence on the defensive side of the football, but starting to gain its sea legs on that offense. It all depends, as we've said, and we're still waiting for it. We're still waiting for the first full game on offense from the Gamecocks. Could come this Saturday.
Well, I think if they don't let Shermer have a big game, and he's a good quarterback.
He is experienced.
But their offense as a whole has struggled this year, 20 points per game. The running game just hasn't been there, 76 yards per game. Yes. But here's the fear. If Shermer starts to light them up a little bit, then that will open things up for their running game, and they will try and get Ralph Webb going, because we know how good a running back Ralph Webb is.
Of course.
So I think South Carolina's got to get pressure on Shermer, got to sack him, got to hit him. You got to get him off his comfort line, make a couple of plays in the secondary with some picks, and that will help them. That will help them, of course. If they're able to control the passing game, then they can sufficiently deal with the running game, I would think.
Coach's son, too. Don't underestimate the meaning of that. Offensive coordinator of the Vikings, Pat Shermer's son, is Kyle Shermer.
Okay, we will continue with more here on Sports Talk. It's a Talking Tuesday.
These guys, they never sleep. Check them out on the web at SportsTalkSC.com. Now, more of Sports Talk on the South Carolina Radio Network.
Okay, we're back. Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. A Talking Tuesday from downtown Columbia. More with our coaches coming up in just a moment. Sports Talk made possible by your local electric cooperative sponsor of the Touchstone Energy Cooperatives Bowl. Find out more about what co-ops are doing across the state. Visit ecsc.org. And, of course, the date, December 9th, put that on your calendar, 2017 Touchstone Energy Cooperatives Bowl.
And if you missed that roster, you can find it at SportsTalkSC.com, which we had yesterday.
Mm-hmm. And want to remind you that you can order tickets online to the Touchstone Energy North-South game and order them now because they'll be cheaper. You can go to touchstoneenergybowl.com, $15 until the 24th, $5 off of the price that will be on the tickets after that. And you want to vote, participate in the voting in terms of the public vote for the finalists for Mr. Football. You can do that at scliving.coop, COOP/football. I got it right.
You got it right today.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
COOP/football. All right, we continue with a Talking Tuesday, going back up to Clemson and to Dabo Swinney. Of course, the Tigers are coming off a loss almost a couple of weeks ago against Syracuse, their last time out. So they've had to deal with the elongated sting of that loss because they didn't have a game to play right away to get it out of their system. So they've thought about it. They've heard about it. You know, people are questioning some things. And so they're anxious to get back on the field and to take on this good Georgia Tech team at Death Valley. And they hope to get a win to sort of reestablish themselves. And Swinney realizes, they're still in the hunt for things, and don't take this game for granted.
I mean, it's the biggest game of the year. I mean, if you can't get excited about the biggest game of the year, then you shouldn't play, because it is the biggest game of the year. And we didn't think Syracuse was the biggest game of the year, right? Well, guess what? It was pretty big. This is the biggest game of the year, so that's really all that matters, is how you prepare for a one-game season mentality. And if you don't have that mindset, you're going to get your butt beat in this conference more often than not. This league is incredibly difficult from top to bottom. I mean, you just look at Boston College. We didn't win by enough against Boston College, and they go to Louisville and win. Then they go and destroy Virginia, who was 5-1. It's hard, man. Wake Forest is a really good football team that is incredibly difficult to beat. Every single team in this league is a challenge. So if you don't bring your A game, you get beat. So there's no different. You just show up and go play the next game with all you got. It don't matter if you lose the second game or you lose the 10th game. You go to the next game, and you try to get back and grow from it and play well. That's all you do. And we want to win them all. We want to win 11. We want to go 11-1. We ain't gonna win 11 until we win 7, right? So that's all we're trying to do is win 7, and then we'll go from there.
All right, Dabo Swinney from earlier today at his press conference at Clemson. We went over the injury situation. We talked about the kicking deal. We talked about Kelly Bryant. So I think we've covered everything with the Tigers from earlier today. And 14.5-point favorites against Georgia Tech. Kickoff will be a little bit after 8 o'clock. And as we said earlier, and as he sort of alluded to, Tigers control their own destiny. Win games, are going to be in great shape.
South Carolina has had to do a little bit of shuffling as far as their offensive line goes, but Will Muschamp says they can turn a negative into a positive with what they're getting back.
Oh, absolutely. You talk about your first start being at College Station in that environment, and so I don't think there's any question, and he has improved tremendously. He's also repping at left tackle right now with Dennis as well as Malik. So, but I think anytime you're able to shuffle the deck, so to speak. You create experience, you create depth on your team. It's not about putting the next guy in, it's about putting the best available player in the game. And we've certainly been able to do that. And I think Eric does a really good job of cross-training guys and teaching them not just a position, but concepts within the offensive line. And it's created some depth for our football team. And again, I think those guys have, the last 2 weeks especially, have played extremely well against SEC opponents, and especially in the second half of wearing people down and being able to run the football. And we were able to do that in both games.
Willow, with Sedarius Hutcherson, assuming that he does go back to being a backup, how do you think he'll handle that after playing pretty well these past couple of weeks?
Well, again, I think that there's no doubt that he played well. He improved every time out. And a guy that we've got a lot of confidence in. And I don't know that we're ready to make a decision right now on who's going to start Saturday. I know he'll play, and I know he'll play well, and given his opportunities and of doing a good job for us.
Vanderbilt's been kind of a team that their pass rush, getting to the quarterback, only so in kind of passing situations, your second, third, and longs. But they've been really, really effective in sort of those non-passing situations, first downs and second and third and shorts. Is there something you see on film that's sort of a reason for that it kind of stands out with that?
Well, I think schematically, Derek does a really good job of attacking protections, and he understands protections, whether it's slide protection, whether it's 3-3 protection, whatever the case may be. And I think schematically, he does a very good job of creating some one-on-ones, and especially 77 and 34 inside are two really good inside players, and 11 right on the edge is a guy you've got to deal with. So I think he does a good job of creating one-on-one matchups.
That is the head coach of the South Carolina Gamecocks, Will Muschamp. And it's interesting, I know that Hutcherson said that Bailey and Helms and Young are all back in their regular spots, but games like they had against Tennessee and games like they had against Arkansas can only help them going forward.
Oh, yeah. Depth, experience. They survived this little crisis on the offensive line for the most part. And I guess, the Texas A&M situation was tough on the offensive line, but I think they grew from it. They found some players in Hutcherson and Camper in particular, and it just makes them deeper for their offensive line. So that's the positive. That's the bonus that came out of forcing those guys to step in and play big snaps. Okay, let's give you the recruiting report here on Sports Talk tonight. More on KJ Henry. We told you last night that his coach had told us he's going to visit USC November 10th, that weekend, for the Florida game. He's taken officials to Georgia and Virginia Tech. He goes to Clemson this weekend. He also plans to take a visit to Alabama. He will announce his decision December 20th at 5 o'clock at his school's Performing Arts Center. And his coach, Adrian Snow, told us that Will Muschamp, Justin Fuente, Clemson defensive line coach Todd Bates, and a coach from Georgia have been in to scout Henry in recent weeks. Defensive lineman Rick Sandage of Concord, North Carolina, went to Virginia Tech unofficially last weekend. Next up, an unofficial to Georgia, November 4th, for the USC game. He's also been to North Carolina and USC for unofficials. He also determined 2 more official visits. He said Florida and Penn State will be 2 more official visits, along with his one that is set with Michigan for the Ohio State game. He has not set dates for those visits. Florida was by his school last week. He said USC continues to recruit him hard. He does not claim a favorite. Offensive lineman Jordan McFadden of Dorman will take his official visit to Virginia Tech this weekend, and he plans to take his official visit to Clemson for the Citadel game. He remains a Virginia Tech commitment. Defensive lineman Josh Walker of IMG Academy in Florida is a former Arizona commit, currently is favoring North Carolina. He's also considering Mississippi State. He made an unofficial visit there a couple of weeks ago. Walker said USC had been showing interest in him, and he last heard from the Gamecocks in September. He said he plans to reach out to Will Muschamp this week to see if he's still interested. Walker said he will take an official visit to North Carolina after his season. He'd also like to take visits to USC, Michigan State, and Mississippi State. Defensive back Israel Mukuamu, Bossier City, Louisiana, told Florida State's 24/7 sports site he is now firm with his commitment after his official visit to Tallahassee last weekend and has shut down his recruiting. USC had been among the schools trying to turn him, along with Georgia and Indiana. A little bit more coming up after the break. Be right with you. All righty. Let's see. Gosh, have I done this one yet? Yeah, I think I did that one already. Let me double check something here real quick. Yeah, I think I did that last night. Okay, here we go. Coming down in 3, 2, 1. Defensive lineman Rick Sandage of Concord, North Carolina, took an unofficial visit to Virginia Tech last weekend. Next up for him, an unofficial to Georgia November 4th for the USC game. He's also been to North Carolina and USC for unofficial visits. He also has set official visits with Florida and Penn State to go along with another one set with Michigan. Offensive lineman Jordan McFadden of Dorman will take his official visit to Virginia Tech this weekend, and he plans to take his official visit to Clemson for the Citadel game. Defensive back Israel Mukuamu of Bossier City, Louisiana, took an official visit to Florida State last weekend. He's been committed to the Seminoles, and he told the Florida State 24/7 site he is firmed up with his commitment with the Seminoles and has shut down his recruiting. Phil Kornbluth, South Carolina Radio Network Sports.
Round 2 of Sports Talk up next with your hosts Phil Kornbluth, Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes. Don't leave us hanging. Join the show, 800-956-7266.
Okay, we're back. Hour number 2, Sports Talk on a Talking Tuesday. Still a lot to come your way. More from Will Muschamp and Dabo Sweeney coming up. A little bit more in recruiting here in just a moment for you. Kerry Tharp, president of Darlington, will be along. Catch up on a little NASCAR. Another big weekend. Another cut down in the NASCAR playoffs. We're down to the final 8. Of course, the World Series coming up tonight, a little bit after, 8 o'clock? First pitch out in L.A. where it's hot and dry and windy, apparently. Looking forward to this World Series, even though the Yanks aren't in it. Still should be an excellent matchup. The two teams with the best records in baseball this year getting to the World Series. That's, kind of the way it should be. Two teams that earned their way to it through the regular season, survived the playoffs. The Dodgers weren't really pushed that much. The Astros were. So I'm looking forward to that coming up here shortly.
I guess the bonus for the Dodgers is because they're not going to use a designated hitter in the National League ballpark, that means Evan Gattis doesn't get his right-handed hacks.
Unless they wanted to play him at the catcher instead of McCann. That's kind of the way that trade-off happens.
One ex-Brave for another. Probably wouldn't happen, though. I think McCann's the guy they like behind the plate most of the time for a lot of reasons. Let me wrap up recruiting here on this Tuesday night. Defensive back Ashante Samuel Jr. of Fort Lauderdale told 24/7 Sports he will visit USC officially this weekend. He's been a Florida State commitment. Auburn commitments, running back Asa Martin of Decatur, Alabama, told Rivals he'll take an official visit to Clemson November 17th. 2019 quarterback Davis Bevel of Greenville High was offered by Pitts. Clemson offered 2019 running back Steele Chambers of Atlanta. USC is also among his offers. He can also be a defensive back. 2019 linebacker Jamon Eford of Deerfield Beach, Florida, was offered by Clemson. USC offered 2019 tight end Garmin Randolph of Jefferson, Georgia. Also has a Florida offer. USC offered 2020 running back Marshawn Lloyd of Hyattsville, Maryland, DeMatha Catholic.
WCAC represent.
Kentucky, Maryland, Rutgers, Virginia Tech, also on his offer list. And 2020 tight end Tishawn Brooks of Dutch Fork has drawn his first contact from Valdosta State. He's also been invited to the offense-defense combine in New Orleans December 27th, and he plans to visit USC for the Clemson game. All right, there you go with recruiting. Zion Williamson, nothing new to report on him today. As you know, he canceled his visit with UCLA for this coming weekend. He's been to Duke, Kansas, and Kentucky. Don't know what his plans are. He and his stepdad pretty much gone underground around here. So I don't have anything new to tell you from my own firsthand information about where he might go. He could go to North Carolina this weekend, or to Clemson or South Carolina for the football game, or he might not go anywhere. Might just stay home, sit it out, and rest up a little bit since he's been on such a busy schedule. But I don't know. We'll see what happens. You think about it. You think about what's out there and what's possible. I mean, the possibility of him landing at Clemson seems like a Reelsville. When you consider if he plays great basketball as a freshman and as a one-and-done player, his family ties to the school, the proximity of the school to his home, his relationship with Brad Brownell and the coaching staff there, which has been a long-standing relationship. It would be the shocker of shockers in terms of the national recruiting scene if he were to, out of all the schools in the country, end up at Clemson. I'm just talking about in terms of reputation of the basketball program.
Hard to turn down the blue blood offer, though. Hard to do that.
Yeah, I know. But listen, if he thinks he's a one-and-done – if you're a one-and-done guy, unless you just have some desire to play at Duke or for Krzyzewski, why would you put yourself – unless you're a big academic type, why would you put yourself through the academic rigors of Duke for 1 year Of course, I know kids do that. They have their one and dones. I'm just saying that, you know, and there's also, of course, the Adidas scandal part of this thing too.
Right.
And with Kansas being such a strong Adidas school, the #1 school for Adidas, I don't know if that might scare him away from going there just because of the hint of impropriety, because of the connection with Adidas.
Well, the interesting thing is you can go to the blue blood programs, and they've had their history of success, but, you know, take into account that he actually sort of, in my mind, ruined that team. But LSU took a chance and took Ben Simmons, didn't hurt his draft status because he was picked number 2.
Markel Fultz with Washington as well.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah. So, again, don't have anything new to report for you on that at this particular time. But, of course, we're monitoring everything there as closely as we can, and we'll let you know if we hear of anything developing.
South Carolina and Will Muschamp getting ready for Vanderbilt. Of course, the main problems still with the Gamecock offense, red zone efficiency and third down, things that were basically addressed very much by Will Muschamp and the team during the bye week.
Well, you know, you always want to study yourself schematically and what have we failed at in those situations, and we've looked at that. You know, when you talk in terms of execution, I think that's a loose word, and it starts with coaching. You know, that's what it starts with. What are we calling to put the guys in situation? And I'm talking about in all 3 phases: offense, defense, and special teams. You know, if a young man doesn't execute, we either didn't rep it enough, he doesn't understand it enough, or we need to find somebody else to do it. At the end of the day, that's what you got to look at it. So that's a fancy word to say those 3 things. Either we're not repping it enough at practice, or we got to find somebody else that can do the job. Because obviously, if we're repping enough at practice and you know you've put it in front of him enough times and he doesn't understand how to do it, then we got to find somebody else to do it if we can. Those are things to me that we evaluated and looked at. I think there's some things that we like moving forward a little better maybe than we had in some other games. You know, at the end of the day, we've missed 9 field goals this year. We've turned the ball over on downs on the 1-yard line. We've turned the ball over as far as a turnover inside the 5 and had another turnover in the high red zone. That's a lot of points that we've left on the field. And it's very frustrating. It's also very deflating for an offense and for a football team to come out of that in those situations. And we've lost 2 games by a grand total of 17 points. You know, and if you add up all those trips in the red zone, it comes up to about 18 points, you know, or something. I don't know. But at the end of the day, it's frustrating. You know, and again, we've got to be able to not turn the ball over down there. We've got to be able to convert some short yardage and goal line situations better. And those are things we've all just gone back and looked at.
Coach said over the bye week, you guys were working on third down offensively, trying to pick up first downs. How do you guys do that, and how important or what can you do maybe on first and second down to get ahead of the chains and make it a third and short situation?
Well, I think, you know, we've looked at some manageable situations, and that is always an evaluation that you say, okay, what put us in 3rd and 12? That's not a good down and distance to be playing. You want to manage to 3rd and 6 or less. 3rd and 3 to 6 is a manageable down and distance on 3rd down. So those are all things that we've looked at. Certainly first and second down have a lot to do with it, but then you go back on 3rd down and say, okay, these are the things that are working well for us. These are things that haven't worked well. Because you look at the Tennessee game, we don't convert a 3rd down in the first half, and then we come back and you have pretty much 100%, I think, to the last one of the game down in the red zone when we were going to run the ball to try and kick the field goal to make it a 2-score game. You look in, you know, in terms of the 2 losses we've had 25 drives. We've had 14 3-and-outs in those 2 ball games. And you've got to convert some 3rd downs to stay on the field. And when you're able to stay on the field, we've been very effective as far as those things are concerned. So that, to me, is why I narrowed down 3rd down as a critical down for us offensively, but also defensively, because where we've struggled defensively is when we haven't gotten off the field on some 3rd down situations. And you look at Louisiana Tech and you look at Kentucky, in those 2 games, we had a hard time getting off the field and really struggled, and it caused to flip the field and not be able to get it back going our direction.
Will Muschamp, I tell you, you know, I'm still waiting on that first full game for that Gamecock offense, because if they get that, boy, going into Georgia, dangerous.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think a win against Vanderbilt, a solid, confident building win, puts them in good shape going to Athens. You don't know what's going to happen this week with Georgia, Florida. I know everybody's thinking Georgia's just going to roll, but it is Georgia, Florida, and the unexpected does happen a lot of times in Jacksonville. So you don't know what kind of frame of mind Georgia is going to be in if South Carolina gets their win over Vanderbilt. How is Georgia going to approach that game? More on that coming up, and more from Dabo.
This is the place to talk Tigers, Gamecocks, and more. Sports talk across the state on the South Carolina Radio Network.
Talking Tuesday here on Sports Talk. Very busy night brought to you by South Carolina soybean farmers and their checkoff. You can learn more at sesoybeans.org. Pork powered by soy. Yes.
A lot of these bowl projections have South Carolina slated for that Belk Bowl. The latest ones have them slated to face Louisville. Can you imagine Lamar Jackson against that South Carolina defense? big test.
Not so sure that's something you want to think about right now.
I would think Gamecock fans would rather have a game in Florida.
Yeah, I would think so.
I think they would.
Plus, I don't think
Louisville playing them where?
The Belk Bowl.
Oh, in the Belk Bowl. Still in the Belk Bowl.
And I still feel that Charlotte
can't
does
send a
not
team
want
back to
South Carolina back to Charlotte.
As far as I'm concerned, if you're not in the national championship playoffs, stay close to home. Make it easy on everybody.
I'm saying that's close to home. It's
well,
not,
I'm not
a bad
arguing
thing.
with that, but I mean, it's no kind of a bowl trip. I mean, do you know what that bowl trip amounts to for the players? Trip to Charlotte. You get to go to Charlotte Motor Speedway and drive around the speedway.
Get a nice little swag bag, I'm sure.
Well, come on.
And for the city of Charlotte, South Carolina fans, if they go, just drive in for the game and leave.
Yeah, they'll
sell
some gas. So they'll sell some gas because you got to probably fill up again before you go back home.
They won't fill that stadium, though.
They will fill the stadium?
No.
Yeah, I don't think so.
I don't think
so. Those bowl games, I mean, South Carolina would probably sell maybe 20, 25,000. They hit 30,000 maybe?
I would say they would sell tickets.
I mean, they went to a bowl game last year.
In Birmingham.
That was in Birmingham, which wasn't a very far ride.
But that's not an attractive destination.
Well, I don't think it's the only thing more attractive because of Charlotte is it being an hour away from,
of course,
the middle part of South Carolina on.
What bowl would you want them to go if you were? I mean, again,
I
realistically,
think they should set their sights on the Sugar Bowl. Get to the SEC championship game, lose to Alabama. I'm not going to say they'll beat Alabama for the SEC championship.
Corn.
They haven't been in a while.
Let me tell you something. If you can't set your sights high, then don't set them at all.
Yeah, but sometimes when you set them too high, you look up and it's a blur. So you want to see something crystal clear.
You want Citrus Bowl? Is that what you want? Citrus Bowl? Orlando? Is that what you want?
Citrus or Outback Bowl, I think, would be more attractive to South Carolina fans than Charlotte.
Well, anything down in Florida, since you haven't been there in a while, when's the last time? I see the Gamecocks' most recent bowl trips have been to Birmingham. Then they didn't go to a bowl game. Before that, it was Shreveport. And
no more Shreveport, please.
Before that, it was, I think that was down in Florida.
Yeah, and some of their best bowl wins against Big Ten teams have been down there in Florida.
Absolutely, absolutely. And people, and of course, you want to try to get on New Year's Day. That shows prestige. That would be a major step forward for the program if they can get into one of those.
That would be a huge step forward for a second-year coach.
Well, remember now, he won 11 games in his second year at Florida and went to the Sugar Bowl. They made great strides from year one to year two.
That was at Florida. If you see the dearth of talent when he came in here, and you talk about the second year making it a bowl in Florida.
I just don't want to see you crapping on the Belk Bowl. That's all. Don't crap on a Belk Bowl.
Okay, I don't plan to. I mean, if they go to the Belk Bowl, that'll be fine.
It's a heck of a thing. It's a great thing.
I like shopping at Belk's.
What's a great thing about it?
Because it's close. It's the closest bowl to you.
Yeah, but it's, I mean, all due respect, it's a lousy bowl game.
They're all lousy.
No, I mean, some are
outside of the playoff. They're all lousy. They all mean nothing.
No, they're not all lousy.
Not all lousy.
There's some good ones out there that your fans can go to and have a good time.
Outside of the New Year's Six and the playoff games, they're all meaningless.
They're all meaningless except for the four that count toward. I mean, the two that count towards the national championship. They all are nothing but exhibition games. But I mean, if you're going to play in a bowl game, try and play in the highest level bowl game you can get to. Now, I know you get slotted if you don't fall into one of the premier bowls. You get slotted by your league, and the Belk Bowl would not be much of a bowl trip for South Carolina. It would be just another game for South Carolina fans. It wouldn't be a bowl trip. Who's going to go to Charlotte?
So many of these
stay and spend several days at that location if you're from South Carolina.
But so many of these bowl games for these schools lose money. I think if you get the Belk Bowl, not only do you stand to gain money from an apparel standpoint, from a ticket standpoint, from all the other prestige,
they don't pay anything.
They have to eat the tickets if they don't sell them.
Yeah, but I mean, you're not going to make any money going to the Belk Bowl.
More money there than going to Birmingham.
You're not going to make any money going to any bowl games. You think Clemson made any money going to the champion? The money they have to put out they get back is not that great.
They get the money from the bowl payout though.
Yeah, but I mean, does that offset what they have to spend? by a great amount?
Not really, but I don't think you can put a price tag of being the national champion.
No,
What
no.
it does to your school. I mean, that's publicity you can't purchase.
I'm just saying, if South Carolina gets to an 8-win season, let's say minimum 8-win season, which would mean if they get to an 8-win season, that means they beat Vanderbilt. Okay, that gets you to 6. So that means somewhere along the line you beat Georgia, Florida, or Clemson to get to 8 wins.
That's what I'm saying.
I'm counting Wofford in there too.
Realistically, you have to count Wofford and Vandy as teams you should beat, and the wild card is Florida because you got them at home.
So my point is, they should aspire for something greater than the Belk Bowl. That's all I'm saying. And I don't think that, they would accept any bowl bid and they would make it sound good, but that's not much of a bowl trip. It's like Vanderbilt going to the Music City Bowl.
These are the bowl tie-ins for them, for the SEC. Citrus Bowl, Texas Bowl, Liberty Bowl, Belk Bowl, Music City, Outback, Tax Layer.
Well, the key point is going down to Florida does 2 things for you. I think the fans are more satisfied with that. And let's face it, that is a huge recruiting blueprint for South Carolina.
You also have to think about the bowls, when they're talking with the conference, they want a team that's going to bring fans.
Yes.
And I think if South Carolina, let's say they got themselves to 8 wins and in the discussion for one of those Florida bowls, I think you could convince the bowls that South Carolina would travel very well to a Florida bowl, because I think the fans would be anxious to go to a New Year's Day Florida bowl setting versus what day is the Belk Bowl? New Year's Eve?
It's the 27th of December.
Yeah. So, I mean, again, I think the Gamecock fans would go in a big number, 25,000 maybe or more to Charlotte. But then again, neither South Carolina nor NC State filled it up for their kickoff game. There were, they have 40,000 in there for that game?
It's a paltry show. It's a paltry showing.
Yeah. So who knows? Who knows if they would do the same thing?
That's kind of what I'm trying to say about South Carolina. If they wouldn't go to Charlotte to see NC State, what makes you think they're going to go to Florida for a bowl game?
Oh yeah, they will go to Florida.
Yeah, I think so. I think they'd be more excited about it. To be quite honest with you.
Especially you have a team.
Depends on who the opponent is.
No, but I think it all comes with attitude. See, if you were aspired to say an undefeated season, you're 8-4, and you go to Outback Bowl, South Carolina fans would perceive it as being on the uptick, and they'd be excited to go down.
The same people who wanted to fire Kurt Roper after starting 1-2 in the conference. Just want to make sure that was the same thing. The same people.
They're always going to be the same people.
Just say it.
By the way, you wanted to correct something or expand on something you said
when I said I was skeptical about Kelly Bryant's durability.
Yeah,
that's what I was. Well,
you were saying I'm skeptical. I'm skeptical. You never said what you were being skeptical about.
I'm skeptical of his durability in this game,
being able to last in this Georgia Tech game.
Until I see it happen, until I see 000s on the clock, I'll be skeptical of his durability to maintain throughout.
Well, look,
game.
I mean, you can get hit. You can get hit on a previously uninjured limb or get re-hit on that ankle.
I understand,
and it could cause a problem. Let's just see if he's healthy, then we're going to see a Kelly Bryant out there who's not limping around like he was at the start of the Syracuse game. Start of the Syracuse game, he was noticeably limping from the get-go.
Yes,
correct?
He said he tweaked his ankle in the first quarter.
Yeah,
which tells me that he wasn't fully healthy from the get-go, because once he got himself in a game situation and actually had to worry about people hitting him, that tells me that he wasn't ready.
Yeah. And that also tells the defensive coordinator, look, guys, don't worry about him taking off, because he's not going to take off tonight. So just play the base defense.
And they didn't blitz him at all, really. I mean, outside of a couple of different situations, they were rushing 4 or 5.
But he must be healthy. I mean, Dabo said he's getting better and better, and they're not going to hold him back from doing what he does.
He said he was healthy going into Syracuse. Look what happened.
All right, we'll be right back. Okay, we're back. Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network, 800-956-7266. If you want to join in on the conversation, let's go to Murray in North Augusta, and welcome into Sports Talk. Murray, how are you?
Hey, thanks a lot, guys. I'm doing pretty well. Listen, someone mentioned a moment ago about South Carolina fans wanting to fire Kurt Roper after starting 1-2 in Commerce. I got news for you. South Carolina fans still want to fire Kurt Roper. You know, I have some chickens I keep in the backyard, and they could scratch out a better game plan in the dirt than Kurt Roper. So, yeah, believe me, Carolina fans want to get rid of Kurt Roper.
You're 5-2.
Now, what is it you don't like about, besides the production part? I mean, what is it about the game plan in general that you don't find acceptable?
Well, it all goes back to production. If you're not getting production, then for example, does Kurt Roper even realize that Hayden Hurst exists? Why are we not utilizing him more? He could be one of the best tight ends in the country, and it's like he may as well be sitting at home most game days. And how many drives are we going to start with a long pass down the sideline? Why not, especially early in the game, why not let Bentley get some easy passes, some dumps, some slants, something like that? No, it seems like every drive he wants to throw right down the sideline.
They gave him some easy passes the other day, and he kept overthrowing.
Was it Kurt Roper who was sailing those throws on with Jake Bentley? No, it was Jake Bentley sailing those throws.
I don't disagree with you.
Those are low percent. Those are low percentage passes, particularly.
No, they're not.
No, they're not. Murray.
I don't disagree with you, Murray. I think some of the play calling can be questioned. Not getting the ball to Hayden Hurst more regularly is, especially with Deebo Samuel gone, and we're going to let you go because you got something ringing in the background, especially when you don't have Deebo Samuel in there. Hayden Hurst is one of the most dangerous, one of the most explosive players. He had 48 catches last year. This year so far, through 7 games, only 19. He has proved to be very dangerous in the jet sweep. I guess you can call it a jet sweep with him. I don't know what they call it. Little sweep that they toss it back to him, little shovel pass. Get the ball to him more. You're right. There's entire games where he's just being used as a blocking dummy.
You mentioned one of the problems with getting the ball to him, and that is the fact that you don't have Deebo Samuel on the field. If I'm a defensive coordinator and I look at a young quarterback, one thing I'm going to say, you know who his Linus blanket is? His tight end. I want him double covered. So they're taking him out of the game.
All I'm saying is Kurt Roper only calls the plays. He's not called upon to execute them, and that's where the problems have been for South Carolina.
I mean, listen, Bentley's a 60% passer. That's not chopped liver, okay? Yeah, he misses some passes. He's a little high sometimes on some guys, especially early in a ball game, but he settles in and he hits a lot of balls, and he picks and chooses his time to run the football pretty effectively too. So, I mean, he's not having a bad year. He's on his way to a 3,000-yard 25-30 touchdown season. But I don't disagree with the caller who says, look, this offense should be averaging 30 points plus per game.
Yeah, but you got to remember the other thing. This is it, because good coaches know they play to their personnel. South Carolina does not have a defense now where you tell a young quarterback to put the ball in jeopardy. Because if you want to open it up, you're putting it in jeopardy. One of the things that South Carolina has not done this year is turn the football over. When you try to open things up, you start to put things in jeopardy. Now, if you got a defense like Clemson last year and you got a quarterback like Deshaun Watson who put the ball in jeopardy, but he had an eraser on that pencil, and that's called their defense. South Carolina does not have that defensive personnel to open up their offense to put the ball in jeopardy as much.
All right, let's welcome in Kerry Tharp, president of Darlington Raceway, as we talk a little NASCAR here on this Tuesday night edition of Sports Talk, coming off, well, something that has been pretty routine all season, KT. Another Martin Truex victory, this time at Kansas. These guys just own the 1.5 mile speedways this year.
Well, they really do, Phil. And, 7 wins this year for Martin Truex Jr. That's half of his career total. He's already won this season, and we have two more 1.5 mile racetracks coming up in a couple weeks at Texas, and then the season finale at Homestead, Miami. I mean, he's going to be very, very difficult to beat. Right now, I'd say he would have to be the overwhelming favorite to win the championship, but a lot can happen between now and then. And, you know, there's 7 other drivers that are going to have a say-so in this, and so we'll see what happens.
You know, lurking in that final 8, and I'm a little surprised that he hasn't shown more strength. I know he's had some issues in the playoffs, but Jimmy Johnson is still there. He hasn't won anything in a long, long time, but he's still right in the hunt.
Well, he really is, Phil. And, you know, they're going to track this weekend, Martinsville Speedway, where he's won at least 7 or 8 times, and I could be giving him benefit of the doubt there. He's been masterful at Martinsville Speedway, and so don't count him out at all. I mean, he's won 7 championships. He's got 2 tracks actually coming up, Martinsville and Texas, where he's very, very strong. And, you know, for him even to make this final 8 after what happened last week at Kansas, I mean, he spun out twice there at the end of the race. He had to get back and get his car squared away and get things done. And so, you know, he's got the team, he's got the equipment, he's got the legacy. So, I mean, I think Jimmy Johnson's still a factor to be considered.
The nature of this playoff, KT, is such that, you know, you keep the intrigue all the way through because of the lowered point increments. But are you sensing that there might be some separation between Truex Jr., Kyle Busch, and the rest of the field of A?
Well, you know, Will, there could be. It's hard to say. The next 3 tracks are Martinsville, Texas, and Phoenix. And so, you know, Truex is good at that mile and a half, good at that mile and a half, but not so good at Martinsville or not so good at Phoenix. And so we'll have to see what happens. I think Kevin Harvick's still a factor. Kevin is very good at Phoenix. He could get into that final foursome there when we get to Homestead, Miami. But certainly the Toyotas have showed their strength the entire season. They've been strong from the get-go. So you'd have to say that Kyle Busch and Martin Truex Jr. right now are probably the top 2 contenders. But, you know, as we saw this past week at Kansas, anything can happen. Kyle Larson, who we thought maybe would get to Homestead, Miami, had an engine failure, the first one in his career in the Cup Series. And so you never know what's going to happen when you have a machine out there that's got thousands and thousands of parts. Something could go awry and ruin your day and ruin your hopes for a championship.
Yeah. Dale Jr., even though he's not in the playoff hunt, he's showing a little strength here. Last couple of races, 7th place finish at Kansas, and of course he ran up front at Talladega to the very end. Where do you think he's finding it here in these last races of his career?
Well, Phil, certainly you would hope he continues to improve here as the season winds down. He's pretty good at Martinsville. He won here a couple of years ago, and I remember I was there. That was a big win for him. He's won at Texas. I believe that was his first ever Cup Series race that he won. So, you know, you'd like to see him go out with a bang. So who knows? I'm sure that they're putting everything they can into the program right now to see if he can get a win before it's all said and done. But I think probably his 2 best bets still coming up are either Martinsville or Texas.
Yeah. Well, it's going to be exciting. I mean, we're down to the 8s, and we're heading towards that the final 4 for that championship race, KT. And this playoff format, I really like it. I think it really adds something to the latter part of the racing season.
Well, I think it does because, I mean, you could have a great regular season and a pretty good playoff, and then all of a sudden you make the finals there at Homestead, Miami, but, you know, something doesn't happen. I mean, when they get to Homestead, Miami, and I've been there many, many times, it's winner take all. Whoever is the highest finisher at that race wins the championship. And so if I get to the Final Four in basketball, whoever wins those 2 games and at the Final Four wins a national championship. And so it's kind of like that at Homestead, Miami. Whoever has the best finish at Homestead, Miami wins the title. And, you know, could it be Martin Truex Jr.? Could it be Kyle Busch? Could it be Jimmy Johnson? Or could it be somebody else? So I guess we'll just have to wait and see over the next 3 or 4 weeks. But I agree with you. I think the playoff system as it is now is much better than what they had in the past.
Thank you, KT. Be right back.
The guys are always checking email. Send your comments or questions to talkback@sportstalksc.com. Now, more of Sports Talk from Columbia's Main Street.
Yeah, an email into us from Joseph. So does Kelly Bryant not have a concussion? He was knocked out. How is that not a concussion? Terry Guger has been out 3 weeks from concussion-like symptoms. Well, I mean, I guess not all concussions are the same. You got some real bad ones that knock you out for an extended period, and you got some others that you can get over pretty quickly. Now, he's had a couple of weeks. He was there yesterday to talk to the media, and I think by all accounts he sounded fine. There was no issues with him there. Look, they're not going to let him play. You know, I don't know if Joseph is a Gamecock fan or just asking a question, but, you know, you can forget the conspiracy stuff here. They're not going to let him play if he's not healthy. Healthy as in able to play and not hurt himself by virtue of, you know, not being clear-headed or anything like that. Now, what happened with Syracuse, you know, the ankle was not so bad that he couldn't play, but it did render him less of a player than he was when healthy. Now, you can certainly question the decision there by the coaches to leave him in less than 100% and leaving him vulnerable with lack of mobility to that Syracuse pass.
Not
rush.
worried about the head because they wouldn't let him talk to the media if he didn't pass concussion protocol. That's the one thing that he did do all of last week. He didn't practice all last week, according to what Dabo Sweeney said and according to what he told us, Kelly Dawn, on Monday.
Mm-hmm.
So he didn't practice all last week, and he went through concussion protocol, and he cleared that. He was fine. Terry Guger, I mean, they're still working through their concussion protocol with him. But at the same time, I mean, again, it's hard to try to compare the two injuries. I mean, they had to immobilize Terry Guger's head and take him off the field at Texas A&M.
Yeah.
Whereas Kelly Bryant was up and walking, you know.
But he was knocked out cold.
He was knocked out cold. So was Guger.
Mm-hmm.
So at the same time, you're looking at they're not all concussions are created equal, like you said. But I think my biggest concern does not necessarily sit with his head. It sits with the ankle.
One more quick item here on Zion Williamson. This is from Jerry Myers, one of the national basketball recruiting analysts for somebody, for one of the networks, talking to the Lexington, Kentucky newspaper about Williamson as a player and what a terrific player he thinks that he is. But, of course, it gets down to where he thinks he's going to go. And he said he's predicting Kentucky. Quote, I still like Kentucky's chances. I think Kentucky's in a strong position. So we shall see on that.
Director of basketball scouting 24/7.
Yeah, by the way, speaking of that, I was reading a recruiting story today on a football player and on this particular website. And the writer, in writing about this player, referred to this guy as having a rating of 0.09556. And what does that mean? Does that mean he's good?
That means that the Russian judge gave him an 8.
I mean, seriously. He's got a rating of 0.9556 in their rating scale. How do you come up with a rating like that on a player?
I don't know.
How do these guys sit around and say, okay, that guy gets 1/10 of a point. That guy gets 2/10 of a point.
I just know that tonight it'll cost you $50 to park at the World Series. 50.
Well, I'm not going to be there. It's not going to cost me a nickel.
$50.
Let's give you the high school football report for tonight here on Sports Talk. And our high school football report here every night on Sports Talk is brought to you by Farm Bureau, presented by Farm Bureau Insurance. And with new auto insurance rates from Farm Bureau, you could be saving a whole lot of money. Even if you received a quote before, rates are now more competitive than ever. Get a no-obligation quote today at favrates.com. And the new rankings from the high school sports reports that have just come out today. And in 5A, Fort Dorchester is ranked number 1, followed by T.L. Hanna, Dutch Fork, Conway, and Dorman. Then it's Spring Valley, Somerville, Hillcrest, Sumter, and Gaffney. In 4A, South Point is number 1, followed by North Myrtle Beach, Hartsville, North Augusta, Belton Honeypath. Then it's Greer, South Aiken, Berkeley, York, and Cane Bay. In 3A, Chapman, of course, remains number 1. Dillon is number 2. Gilbert moves up to number 3. Emerald is 4, and Newberry is 5. Then it's Broome, Bishop England, Seneca, Walhalla, and Pendleton. In 2A, Abbeville continues at number 1, followed by Saluda, Carvers Bay, Lee Central, and Bamberg Earhart. Then it's Barnwell, Chiraw, Andrews, Southside Christian, Gray Collegiate at number 10. And in 1A, Lamar is number 1, followed by Hemingway, Lakeview, Williston Elko, and C.E. Murray. Then it's Baptist Hill, Ridge Spring Monetta, Cross, Wagner Sally, and McCormick. There you go with the high school football rankings for the high school league teams from the High School Sports Report. Some final thoughts from Dabo Swinney on this Talking Tuesday. 2 big issues going into this game. Kelly Bryant, how's he feeling? How will they use him? And, of course, what are they going to do about the kicking game?
We run the quarterback here. It's what we do. I mean, it's like not handing it to your running back. Because he's a little sore. I mean, we play. We run our offense. That's what we do. I mean, you ask your quarterback to try to be smart. I thought Deshaun got much better at that. He got a little reckless at times, but I thought as he went through his career, he got a lot smarter as far as being able to, don't take some unnecessary hits. But there's times where, hey, you got to go get it. And so, you just same thing. You just ask him to play smart. But, Paul's going to run his quarterback too. A lot, like 64 carries, maybe not for him, but he's going to get half of them or more. So, it's just what we do. We run, and that's why it's option football. In 2017, just a different way to do it. But our quarterback is always going to be a factor with his legs. And if he can't put us in position to win, then you put somebody else in there.
Clarity on the kicking situation, and are y'all still experimenting with Drew Costa?
You got as much clarity on the kicking situation as I got right now. I promise you. It's just frustrating. Obviously that was a big loss for us losing Hugel, but it's frustrating because I see Alex do it in practice, and he's been awesome since the Syracuse game. He comes out to practice and, we track everyone, making them kick. Everybody's getting the same kick. Everything's the same. Everybody's got to have the same everything. I don't want anything different for anybody. And we're trying to just let them compete their tails off. And I'm just asking them to make the layups. I ain't even interested in, a 3-pointer. It's just make the layups. We're just running layup drill, coach, every day. That's what we do. We're just running layup drill. And if we can just make some layups, we can maybe grow from there. And right now, today, Alex is still out front. But we still got Tuesday practice, Wednesday practice, Thursday practice. And I'm going to watch warm-ups. It'll be the most watched warm-ups in the history of kicking warm-ups. Get there early. I'm going to chart it all the way to kickoff. I'm charting it. And I have no idea who's going to run out there first. Play today, be Alex. But at some point, we got to take it to the game field. I like everybody. It's not personal. But you got to perform.
All right, Dabo Swinney. If they were playing today, it would be Spence handling the kicking. But again, the competition will continue through this week. And it's one thing to do it in practice. You got to be able to do it into that game pressure.
He did say one thing right.
That's Parker White.
Yeah,
he did say one thing right. He said he likes everybody.
Yes. Well, I'm not sure about that.
That's about the truest.
On his team or in the entire world?
He said I like everybody on his team. Yeah. That's no truer statement ever made by Dabo.
But some I like better than others.
Busy.
Little Animal Farm out of you.
Day
or a pro rather.
Busy day coming up on Sports Talk tomorrow. I'll be in Charlotte for the ACC Basketball Media Day. We've also got an interview lined up with Gamecock basketball coach Frank Martin.
We do.
We'll bring that to you tomorrow night. And, of course, more football as we march on towards another big weekend. So everybody have a great night. Thank you, guys. And thank you, Brian. Have a great night. We'll see you tomorrow.